Welcome back to Go Produce My Crew. My name is Big Lou, and this is the podcast and YouTube channel that explores how music industry professionals turn their passions into profit. We are on a massive mission to bring clarity to the music industry, and our goal is to help 1 million music industry professionals live off of their passion. I'm laying down the foundation that I need in order to thrive in the music industry, and I want to help you do the same. This episode is brought to you by thecharts.com. If you're a producer or beat maker looking to build your beat commerce business in less time, thecharts.com can help. With an easy-to-use, mobile-friendly interface and built-in marketing tools, thecharts.com will help you grow your brand, build your fan base, and scale your income. Sign up for free and start selling your beats and instrumentals today on thecharts.com. Today's theme is, where is the simplest place to create an NFT and what you should be considering when doing so, from the CEO of a social media platform for NFTs called User. Let's go. All right, Tom Cermak has worked with some incredibly passionate people over the years, founding ambitious for-profit and non-profit organizations, often focused on the power of creativity. He has built numerous digital products and experiences for clients such as Digital Extremes and Moog Music. Tom has also raised 1 million plus in seed and operational funding while building passionate teams capable of doing the impossible. Since January of 2018, he has been the CEO, CTO, and president of User, which is a social media and rewards program that empowers users to earn digital currency. Go produce. This is Tom Cermak. Hey, welcome to the show, Tom.
Welcome. Thank you for welcoming me. I'm so glad to be here.
It's an honor. I want you to know that we do very much appreciate your time. So let's go ahead and make the most of it and go produce. Yes. The first segment that we've got is called The Basics. No, not one to jiggy. That's cool. Instead, we can start with the question. What is your first musical memory?
My first musical memory is probably, maybe LL Cool J, Beastie Boys, listening to their CDs kind of back to back, maybe. I'm sure I have ones that kind of predate that, but my own sort of affiliation with music probably goes back to the 80s, and sitting on the couch while my sister is watching Much Music and she's watching like 80s music videos, Depeche Mode, Morrissey, all that kind of stuff. Those are probably my earliest musical memories, aside from, just enjoying music in general. My family and a few of the other sort of like immigrant families that I'm kind of connected with and grew up with, all have sort of different musical styles and tastes. So I grew up with Colombian music, always playing in the background because I have Colombian family that I'm close with. I grew up with, a lot of European music, Eastern, Northern European music, polka, all kinds of stuff. But then really probably the memories that stick with me are, the type of stuff that my sister was listening to in the 80s as I was just like a little kid. And then from there, getting into hip hop. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's like you're all over the place with this response. But be honest with me. How many times did you get into it with your sister over who had control of that?
Oh, geez. She's 7 years older than me. So at the time she could just sit on me. So, and battle's over.
Apparently she chose music that was satisfying for you, and it captivated your energy, and we're able to talk about it today. So it was worthwhile. Now I want to know what your first lesson in the music industry is.
Well, in the music industry itself. Well, I learned back in the 90s that people didn't really respect electronic musicians very much. So definitely back in the 90s, one of the lessons that I had to learn pretty quick was how to make an electronic music show dynamic and exciting, and not just a guy on his laptop. Because at that point, everybody was like, what are you, emailing? And so there wasn't quite the same level of appreciation or respect for electronic music. So I often started pairing up with other musicians to make more live and dynamic shows. So I learned very quick the power of and the art of presentation when doing shows, and how important it was to make sure that the show itself was live, dynamic, fun, exciting, interesting, mysterious. One of the things that was difficult for me starting out as a musician was just trying to figure out, what was the music world really like. And I think as a teenager, a lot of us have like this, very naive perception of what, the music industry is really like. And then you kind of start doing shows and you realize it's a real hustle, right? Everything about it's a hustle. Doing shows, getting shows booked, talking to, event organizers, etc. All that stuff is tough. It's a real hustle. So you have this kind of naive notion that I can just go out there and perform and people will love it. And then you quickly learn that, there's a million things you have to do. You have to be multifaceted. And the same applies to artists as well, which I've worked a lot both with artists and musicians, and they share a lot of the same issues, which you have to be this multifaceted person. And it's really hard to. And that's where a lot of the other industry comes in, right? You don't always have to be, your agent, your lawyer, etc. Right? You can have a team of people that help you get there.
It's probably important to be able to understand what each of these team members is doing. So wearing those hats, even for a short period of time, could prove to be beneficial to you down the road, even if you just want to focus solely on the creative part, no?
Totally. Absolutely. I have, friends, colleagues. It's just not something that they can do. Some people aren't good at math. Some people aren't good at, the creative stuff, so they pick what really lends to their talents. But it doesn't hurt to be entrepreneur and wear multiple hats. It's hard. I think it's hardest perhaps to understand what that actually means and entails, because like I tell many people, probably the closest thing to running your own business, right, is having a baby. There's just so many things that you have to now take care of, right? All of a sudden, now you got to feed this thing. Now you got to burp this thing. Now you got to clean up after this thing. So you start to feel like a janitor or a parent, right? And no equivalent in terms of the level of work that you have to put into something. And so when people ask me, I'm thinking of starting my own business, I warn them. I don't initially go, oh, that's fantastic. Okay, great. You got an idea. Start a business. Fantastic. You want to start a restaurant? Go ahead. No, I say that it's going to be hell. And it's going to be worth potentially even if you fail. Because with that failure comes, so many blessings, right? You learn so much, right? And you're going to fail repeatedly. And hopefully you fail fast. But it's like having a baby.
That's an interesting analogy. And I personally don't have children, so I wouldn't go and say that because, other people be like, oh, you wouldn't know. But it does make sense because you are constantly nurturing this. It's not like 11 p.m. rolls around and you're just not thinking about it. You can still receive a message and it's on your mind constantly. It's not 5 p.m. shuts off and you can do whatever else you want.
But you personally don't have children, but you are a child. So you should know.
Yeah. I'm not easy to take care of. So good point. All right. The final question that I have for you in the basics is, we should spend a little bit of time on this, not too much time, but what has been the greatest challenge that you've had currently outside of COVID?
Wow, that's a pretty deep question. You can go down some rabbit holes there.
What you got for us?
Well, one of the questions I'm very interested in answering, and I've been trying to answer this for a very long time, is what is the future of work?
Interesting.
In a society where we've projected to potentially lose 800 million jobs, even within the next few years, due to automation and AI, I've been wondering for a long time, how are we going to, as a society, function? How are we going to work and economically value people's contribution to society? even like, we're not even talking about blue collar jobs anymore, right? You know, in the 60s and the 70s, it was all the fear of, all these blue collar jobs are going to go away because, you know, we have machines that can like lift heavy things and stuff like that. But now we're looking at a mass exodus of potential white collar jobs. And it's a gradual thing. It's happening all the time. But with new technologies coming online that look like they can simulate a lot of these tasks that even white collar people do, where are we going to provide a system whereby somebody can earn something at the end of the day and then they can meaningfully contribute back to society?
Do you think, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do you think it's going to lead more towards like creative opportunities for people to truly flourish and like explore that? And it might be an uncomfortable switch because a lot of people don't consider themselves to be creative?
I really believe in this idea that everybody has creative capacity. And we need to figure out how to reclaim that, because there was still this feeling generally in society that creativity really wasn't being appreciated or respected very much. You know, YouTube hadn't become the thing or the phenomena that it is now. Influencers weren't, you know, didn't really exist. So the idea that everybody could get their 15 minutes of fame and be creative and utilize their creativity for something that could have a wide-ranging impact wasn't really there yet. So I started this conference, and the whole idea was to just wake people up to the notion that there's creativity everywhere. There's creative opportunities everywhere. And how can you take advantage of creativity in your day-to-day life? And it was very interesting, but it was very niche and it was very small. I think there was a lot of people probably working along similar lines all across the world for many, many years, decades, trying to push this idea that creativity really is one of the last refuges of human beings.
Humans, yeah. This is a great dilemma, and we went a lot deeper than I was anticipating. It's very much appreciated, but for time, we should continue into our speed round. Yes. Before I get caught up even further into this hole that you brought us into, I gotta say thank you. But in the speed round, we're going to be throwing 20 questions at you in rapid succession. You have to answer them in as little time as possible, and you can only do so in one word. All right? No justification. We can justify afterwards. All right. Okay. Breakfast or dinner?
Dinner.
On user, gems are if likes and digital currency had a baby.
Yes.
What is your favorite time of day?
6 p.m.
Do you prefer to read or watch movies or shows?
Shows.
On user, your reach isn't suppressed by an oppressive algorithm.
Correct.
What is your favorite snack?
Pizza.
At the end of the day, you want a nice big glass of?
Almond milk.
Whoa, haven't heard that one yet. How many years have you been in the tech space for?
12 years.
What is your favorite place in the world?
Thailand.
What is your favorite music genre?
Glitch hop.
Gems have a fixed dollar value, yes?
Sort of.
Who is an artist that you currently find the most exciting?
Well, Petra Glint is up there.
Do you have any nicknames?
Digital chemist.
NFTs stands for non-transferable fungibles.
Sorry, what did you say? Non-tangible? No.
You caught me. You caught me. All right, you caught me. What is your favorite animal or plant?
Elephants.
Where is your next vacation spot?
Where there are elephants? Oh.
Thailand. There you go.
More than one word.
User is a social media and rewards platform that empowers users to earn digital currency.
Correct.
Would you go to the moon? No elephants.
Depends.
If movie is to watch, then Netflix is too. Have you released any NFTs personally?
Correct.
Okay, yes. We made it through. Correct. That was the speed round. Do you often hear of non-transferable fungibles? Is that something that gets thrown in there when people are, having talks?
People are mixing it up all the time. I'm loving the conversations, whether it's, FT, FEFs, what, right? There's a constant, fumbling of the terminology. If anything, it should stand for, new fumbling technique.
NFT. There, we were trying to come up with a different acronym. Okay, so to clarify it all, how can you, in the shortest amount of words, share what that is, and then we can go into the next segment and then break that down a little bit more. So what is an NFT?
An NFT stands for a non-fungible token. Essentially, there are two main different types of tokens, which decentralized blockchains use as a form of currency or financial tool or instrument. And so Bitcoin itself is a type of token, so to speak. Ethereum as well. But then what Ethereum, which a lot of people know as kind of like the second most popular sort of cryptocurrency, it's actually a framework and a network of which facilitates transactions. And an NFT is a type of token that is a standard on that network. A fungible token is a currency that's just like any other, right? So any other Ethereum that you get on the Ethereum network is just like any other. But one thing that was really cool that Ethereum did, the Ethereum community, the development communities, they came up with this new standard of this idea. It's great to have this, like dollar that's just like any other dollar and we can exchange it. But what if we could add a unique property to each dollar to say that it represents something, right? Because a dollar is really just something that we say has value, but everything has value. And we can kind of tie that value and a sort of contract of like who owns that value, that valuable object or thing, into the token. So the token really represents a contract between you and the network that says you own this thing of value. And what non-fungible tokens allow you to do is to say, I own this unique thing of value. And that unique thing could be a deed on a house. It could be, heck, it could even be, a marriage contract, really. But it can also represent unique things like content. So really, one of the really cool things that the Ethereum community did by establishing this new standard and the idea of the smart contract, which is the idea of this token that can represent all sorts of different types of things, is it helped create this kind of new idea that we could now use digital frameworks or networks, such as blockchain decentralized technologies, to help create a monetary value to everything or anything.
Boom. That's an NFT. That's beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to build off of that in our next segment. Our next segment is called What's Your Take? Here, I'm going to be presenting you with different statements or scenarios, and we just want your perspective. Since we have a little bit of a better understanding of what an NFT is, I want your opinion or your take on what blockchain technology is a little bit, just so that people can understand how that system works. And then we can go from there.
So the best way to explain decentralized technologies, especially, let alone blockchain decentralized technologies, is, so imagine there's a bank, right? Everybody knows kind of what a bank is like, right? Every bank has a ledger, and this ledger is simply a list of transactions, right? So-and-so owns this much, or so-and-so has this much money. So-and-so transferred this amount of money to so-and-so, right? The wonderful thing here is that banks for a long time helped us keep track of all these transactions. It's fascinating. It's great. It's awesome. Empowered economies, led to the rise and fall of empires. But there are some disadvantages to having a centralized ledger, especially in a digital world where it's easy to kind of like go, okay, I'm going to hack into this one data center that holds this ledger of everybody's transactions. And if I just like make a small change so that every time, a transaction happens, I get a penny of that transaction, I could get really rich. It's true. This is a true story. Somebody did this once. You could get really rich while hacking a system relatively easy because you only need to hack into one data store to do it, right? So that within itself is a weak point. The idea of the decentralized blockchain is the blockchain is this remarkable way of which to create this sequential ledger in a very well encrypted fashion, making it very secure. But creating a decentralized network is really what helps create this like awesome new capacity that we can all take advantage of. So by decentralizing the blockchain, essentially all we're doing is we're saying, okay, instead of having one bank that owns a copy of the ledger, now we're going to give a copy of that same ledger to 50 million people, right? Or 1 million people, whatever that number happens to be, but everybody that's helping to facilitate the transactions on the network that has a wallet. Basically, what that now means is if I want to change what the ledger says, not only do I need to hack into one computer, but probably more than 50% of 1 million or 100 million or however many computers to change what the ledger says so that anybody would agree with me that it's like the case that I, in fact, are now super rich, right? So that's what's incredible. So now it's actually the power of numbers, the power of people, the power of all of us participating together that actually helps to make a network more secure. Not only that, now these transactions can actually be performed by this network and no longer just by a central financial institution. And so now it's not just a central financial institution that's taking a cut of every transaction, but now we can all participate in helping transactions happen and get a cut of them.
And we can all get a cut of it. Boom. It's a new playing field. It's the future. So this is part of where we're going with the future. Now I'm curious to know, what does the sales process itself look like on OpenSea? That's the most popular currently?
OpenSea is currently definitely the most popular marketplace for NFTs right now.
So how does one actually the rigorous steps, not talking about user, we'll talk about user and how it simplifies it later on, but how difficult or how challenging is it right now to make an NFT and to actually get it sold?
Well, there are a few challenges and hiccups that people are experiencing right now. One of them is that you essentially need a bit of Ethereum to actually start minting NFTs. Minting is the term used for creation in the NFT world. So if you hear this term minting, they just mean create an NFT token. So just to be clear, the NFT token just represents the data in the blockchain. It doesn't actually mean that your file is stored with the token. In fact, you're just referencing your actual original file from the NFT token. So you don't store your file necessarily with your token. You can store it on the blockchain, and there's IPFS and other solutions that can help you do that. But when you actually go to create an NFT token, you're just creating the token and then putting in, say, a URL to your original file, along with uploading the file to OpenSea. But before you can get there, you need some Ethereum to mint that token. Before you can get Ethereum, you need a wallet. So you need to set up something like MetaMask so you can set up an Ethereum wallet. MetaMask is a little tricky, but there's tons of tutorials and documentation online. Probably one of the easiest ways to get set up so that you can then set up a OpenSea account and connect it with your MetaMask. MetaMask is essentially just a user interface for the wallet that it generates on the Ethereum network for you. And then that wallet is going to be where you need to transfer some Ethereum funds into, so that when you attempt to create a token to sell on OpenSea, you're going to need a little bit of Ethereum that handles the transaction cost or gas fee. Gas fee in the Ethereum world is a transaction fee.
Interesting. Okay. And I've commonly heard of OpenSea and NFTs and all of this more so geared towards the digital creator. But how does this relate to musicians? How can they get in on the mix?
Well, one of the things that is a little bit of an obstacle right now to musicians is that these transaction fees can vary quite a bit. So sometimes transaction fees can be a few dollars, and sometimes they can range they can be $20 or even $60. And that's partly because the Ethereum network wasn't really built to scale. Now, Ethereum network is getting a big update, hopefully at some point this year, which is going to help it move past these transaction fees a little bit But there's also other blockchains out there that don't have these types of transaction fees or are not susceptible to these types of high transaction fees. There are solutions being developed right now to like lower these transaction fees, even using Ethereum. And there's suspicion that I have that OpenSea is even attempting to employ some of these. Immutable X is a great solution that's out there. So right now, that creates itself a little bit of a barrier for musicians, especially those that predate, Napster, and are used to the idea of selling, a CD or an album's worth of music for, $20, right? 20 with a $20 transaction. Like that just doesn't compute, right? So there are a lot of things, even if we talk about video game assets, like little digital assets that companies are trying to sell as NFTs right now. A lot of those companies are running into bottlenecks because of Ethereum and are trying to work with these other solutions or other blockchains to try to get around the transaction fees. So we're trying to do the same thing at User. We're trying to get around the transaction fees for musicians. And that's one of the interesting areas that I think we're going to see a huge blossoming of. Right now, if you are a musician and you're looking to take advantage of NFTs, you need to think about it a little bit differently, especially if you're going to do it on the Ethereum network. You can think about the possibility of pairing up with visual artists or animators, et cetera, to create multimedia work that could potentially be auctioned off or sold for larger amounts of money. Thinking about the idea of selling a one-off piece of work to somebody, right? Much like visual artists have done in the past. I think a lot of the reason why art has kind of like visual art has blown up in the NFT space is partly because the art world is used to auctioning works, whereas in the music industry, that just wasn't really a thing, right? Music industry just had a different formula. It had a different business logic to it, right? So there are definitely some creative ways. You could think about crowdfunding an album this way, right? It'd be easy to basically run essentially a Kickstarter by running an auction of an NFT that is essentially your album, right?
That's definitely something to consider, and I'm waiting for the first person to get that going. You spoke on different solutions that are being explored to make this a little bit easier to lower the gas fees, but what about solutions on this? I am also hearing that the average NFT is quite energy intensive. I don't want to say any specific numbers. They say the average European citizen, whatever they consume in a month. I don't even know what that means. But what is happening in that space? How do you address that?
Yeah, well, actually, Bitcoin and Ethereum were both built utilizing or developed utilizing what's called mining, right? And mining is the process of validating these transactions that are happening on the network. It's kind of like having a third-party witness to say, yeah, this agreement is legit, right? I'm witnessing this agreement. Well, basically, the way these networks work to validate a transaction in a similar way is they actually use a method called mining. And mining is taking computational power to basically crunch encrypted algorithms to solve these transactions. And then it's the person that the party that has the computer that's running this computational process usually requires very powerful GPUs to do this, to compete in the marketplace. It's the person that could do it the quickest, essentially, simplifying it, that wins the transaction fee. And so there's a built-in incentive for everybody to do this. Now, because the nature of the competition is to do this faster and quicker, obviously that drives people to use more and more computational power to solve the transactions. So that's led to huge data warehouses, huge computer centers that are essentially mining these transactions so that they can get these fees. Now, to put this into perspective, Bitcoin is still taking up a fraction of the environmental input that the entire banking community does currently. Still, the environmental footprint of Bitcoin is not the prettiest thing in the world by any means. And everybody should be trying to work towards, especially with digital solutions, to have the smallest input footprint possible. Now, Ethereum uses mining as well, but it is actually moving towards a method called staking. And staking doesn't use this computational method to solve transactions. And it's supposed to be updated in ETH 2.0, which should be delivered at some point this year. It's been promised before, like last year. But when this happens and when the network moves to proof of stake or staking, which I won't get into explaining too much, it will essentially reduce the environmental footprint by 100%. Yeah, so like it's going to be less of an environmental footprint than Visa. So it will be a kind of a network itself that will have essentially a very small environmental footprint. The thing to keep in mind is that a lot of other blockchains are already using staking. Polkadot, which is a huge favorite of ours, is already using proof of stake. So there isn't any environmental concern whatsoever. And in fact, a lot of people don't know this, but there's a lot of blockchains out there. And there's going to be a lot of competitors. There are a lot of competitors for being the network to perform any different type of transaction that you can think of. And a lot of them have been working on moving to a method like proof of stake for a long time. So we're going to see the phasing out of the environmental footprint of these types of currencies. There's already a lot of push, especially since Tesla's tweet to migrate Bitcoin, or at least create future competitive Bitcoins that are not utilizing mining. Whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know.
We shall see.
Bitcoin is its own beast, but definitely Ethereum's already moving in that direction, and saw the writing on the wall years ago already that it needed to move to that.
Let's make it happen then. I like that. All right, final question for this segment. Tell us the capabilities of the smart contract for the music industry. Does this ultimately protect the artist's copyright?
Yes and no. Right now, an artist could put out a piece of content on the internet, like they have so much, and then say, go turn around and find out that somebody's taken their piece of work and attached it to an NFT. That's happened already. Artists, visual artists have already said, hey, wait a second, that's my work. You've just made it into an NFT. That's mine. And essentially that's partly because the first time the artwork was introduced into the world, it wasn't attached to an NFT. But because, like I said, these decentralized blockchains act as this kind of like global communal ledger of not only transactions, but now these tokens that can represent all sorts of things in the real world, as we move towards a online community where the first time I'm putting something into the world, it's stamped with an NFT, I now have proof in a huge ledger that's really difficult to hack that, in fact, I am the author and the original creator of this piece of work. So once we get to that point, and the writing's on the wall, it's happening. Once the rest of the large companies that currently aren't playing in this arena, won't name any names, Facebook and Google, we will now be able to have these ledgers that we can all check, and that we don't have to rely on YouTube or Facebook to say, oh yeah, that's that person's piece of content and not theirs, right? We won't have to rely on them to be the arbiters of truth.
Interesting.
So
yeah,
the answer is yes and no.
Okay.
It's definitely going to take a bit of time before NFTs can help an artist to protect their work.
And then do the royalties getting paid out, is that simplified as well?
Yes. One of the great aspects about blockchain period is that it simplifies anything financial to a great extent. And it now automates it, right? So say, for instance, you have an arrangement with a record label, they get X amount of royalties, you get X amount of royalties. And say now you want your fans to have the ability to sell the music instead of just give the music CD to somebody else. They can now just sell it to their friend. You can bake in the royalties to every single time that NFT is sold. And it will automatically be transferred to your wallet, your label's wallet, and anybody else that now gets a cut that you've defined in that token, in that smart contract.
That's huge.
So yeah, it is huge, because now it all of a sudden even turns some models on their head, right? The idea that, say for instance with tickets, right? Music tickets. Now we could create an NFT token of a music ticket that gives you access to a music festival or a music event. But if you wanted to, you could make sure that every time somebody tries to scalp that ticket, sell it to somebody else, of which sometimes there are legitimate use cases. I get sick and I can't make the show. You will get the royalty from that sale. And that's the only way that the ticket can be sold, in a way that guarantees that you always get the cut that you want from that sale.
It simplifies. I mean, I feel like a lot of people might be hesitant in terms of how much more we can get out of this. Is this just like a trend? But one of the fans that have a question next is going to get a little bit into that. So with that said, we can go into our next segment. Our next segment is called Community Queries.
Here we go.
Wow. I've got 3 fans that submitted questions a little bit earlier, and I'm going to pull them up for you right now. Our first question is from Ash. He is in banking, believe it or not, but he's fascinated by the crypto world and he wants to look into that. So this is his question.
Hey, Louis. So my question is, how will users be incentivized to use a decentralized social media app powered by cryptocurrencies versus a traditional form of social media like Twitter or Instagram, given that they already have an established active user base that's much larger and can reach a much broader audience?
No, it's great. Great question. One thing that we started paying closely attention to, because we were working with a lot of influencers, artists, and musicians from 2015 to 2017, is that there was this very distinct pattern. As soon as Facebook, Instagram, or somebody changed the algorithm, traffic would stop, traffic would die, and they're meaning to monetize, which often involves back alley deals with using other messaging platforms to form sponsorships, etc. Facebook's business model is advertising. And with that business model, it is forced to charge you for access to your own audience. Well, what if we had a different business model where instead of charging people for getting access to their own audience that they organically created, that they're responsible for, we actually took cuts of transactions on the network that we allowed people to perform freely. So thus, we are now incentivized as a business, as a platform, to share a lot of the same goals that our users have, which is to generate lots of traffic, which is to grow huge audiences and to sell things. We also believe that users should be able to own their data. And so we'll be turning those into NFTs as well, allowing them to take their data wherever they go, wherever they choose, and to control that and to be able to monetize that.
And that's what you got to do in this world, hey?
Yeah. And the next thing I'll add, just to finish, is now we know that the future is not these monolithic social networks, but in fact, a huge community of social networks, all vying for the attention of artists and musicians. The future is bright for musicians and artists. Jump on new platforms, discover what's out there, take advantage of different ones. There's no longer going to be one giant behemoth that controls everything, because we have the technology to not only make a dent in that system, but to create a more egalitarian society.
Oh, I like that approach. That kind of leads into our next question. That was Ash Garge. You can find him on Instagram at AshGarge09. Big shout to you. We also have our next fan. This is Beth. She is a music enthusiast and an aspiring music engineer. And you a little bit touched on it, but this is related to her question. Here it is for you.
Do you think NFTs are just a trend, or do they actually have the ability to change how independent artists can offer their music to their audience?
It's one of the most important questions, and one that I get very often. We've experienced a lot of different disruptions to our economy, to our way of life. Obviously, very recently, we've experienced the pandemic and how much that's disrupted our way of life. But the internet seriously disrupted all sorts of lives. And it disrupted the music industry, the art industry, the publishing industry, all of them. It provided a great avenue for us all to get our 15 minutes of fame, right? It's essentially a decentralized means of communication, right? The internet is everywhere. It's everybody's computers connected to each other. And it allows us to get popular real quick. But along the way, what we forgot to do when building the internet was to create a similar stream of decentralized, monetizable technology. And so that's what decentralized blockchain technologies are all about. They're about doing the same thing that we did with the internet for attention, but now for money. So now you get a chance at that 15 minutes of fame and the ability to monetize it. That's the way we see it. That's the way I see it. And that's the way everybody at User sees it.
That's huge. It's huge. I mean, like it's never going to change. At least I don't see the situation where attention is no longer valuable. That's probably just going to always be a thing. But if you're able to monetize whatever attention you're able to get, that goes a long way for the creators. That's super. Big shout out to Beth for asking that question. You can find her on Instagram at, get ready for this one, at Yui_Hitashin. I apologize if I got that wrong. Our last fan question is from Dom Tocacelli. He's an aspiring artist manager. This is his question.
Hey, Louis. My question is just about how User plans to target NFT consumers as opposed to digital creators and lure them to the app and away from major players in the social media game.
Well, like with creating any new community or network, it's all about trying to create the sense of a party, right? There's some people there you don't know that you're like interested in meeting. And then there's some people there that you know, right? That you're familiar with that help guide you through that experience, right? Oh, hey, Jesse's here. Okay, cool. I can go talk to somebody, right? But you're always going to a party, right? Because there's somebody there you want to meet. There's somebody there that you don't know too well. There's somebody that, you know, you obviously want to get to know really well. Well, that's kind of what it's like to build a community, an online community. And so we understand very well that our target demographic is artists and musicians and those that are looking to monetize their works. But we're trying to, every step of the way, create a method for people to be onboarded into this world, especially the NFT and the blockchain world, which can be very confusing and off-putting at first to general consumers. But right off the bat, you post content on User and you can start earning gems, our native token. And we did that so that we could create this sort of like simple, synonymous experience that you have with your regular social network. Liking on User is gifting. And when you like, you give people gems, right? And that's how you initially start to earn and accumulate a token that you can use. You can use to buy products, services, etc.
So make it similar, but also a little bit different and more beneficial to each of the actual participants of the app.
Absolutely. So now there's a benefit to it. For instance, with our hashtag contests, you can earn Ethereum or gems or other cryptocurrencies eventually. But the idea is now all the artists are like, oh, geez, I need to get all my fans on this platform because I need them to upvote my content so that I can earn, you know, I can earn stuff.
Let's jump into the final segment, Clear the Air. And we're going to go through this quite quickly. We did touch a little bit on, let me tell you essentially what we're going to do. I'm going to give you, I just want you to bring clarity to these slightly denser questions, but the denser questions are all going to be focused around User. We did touch a little bit on what User is, but in very simple terms, can you lay it out for us? What is User exactly?
User is the first social NFT app in both the Android and Apple App Store. It offers everyone the chance at creating a new social experience that they can monetize. And we're completely and absolutely 100% dedicated to making sure that it's an app built for and by artists, musicians, and creators the world around.
And I can add to that experience. I've used the app already a couple of times, and there are a couple of features that make it more fun than your typical social media. I'd almost say it's a little bit gamified. What was the thought behind that?
Well, we just want to make sure we create a rewarding experience, right? It's our number one motivation to make sure that you feel rewarded for what you contribute online, right? Going back to my previous question or my previous thought and train of thought on, you know, what the future beholds for the future work, we believe that a lot of that has to do with your online activity on a social network. So we want you to make sure that you're feeling rewarded for what you do, for what you contribute, because it's your effort, your content, your audience that helps to build these platforms. And we want to make sure that we're helping to share that every step of the way. So from gems to our hashtag contests to the marketplace where merchants can sell goods for cash or gems or Ethereum, we're trying to make sure that the experience is fun, exciting. We have levels that people can earn as they continue to contribute to the platform. These levels will unlock all sorts of interesting things.
And it's as easy as commenting and just liking and doing simple things that you do across like other platforms already.
Yep, absolutely. But you see, a lot of these social networks out there, they have these kinds of systems in place where they keep track of you and what you do and how you contribute to the network and how valuable you are, but they keep it all to themselves. We want to make sure that you know just how valuable you are to the network.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. And that goes a long way for the actual musicians, the music companies, people using it, whomever that is actually involved in this. Everyone feels more welcome. Okay, and then you also mentioned a marketplace. How easy is it to use your gems that can be treated as your digital currency almost, to then go to the marketplace? Are you doing the shopping online? Are you going to physical locations? What does that look like?
Yeah, so currently we've test piloted the marketplace, whereby a few select users have been able to actually go to physical stores and use their gems to purchase products. We will be launching online stores in the next few months, and we have a lot more to announce about that fairly soon. But yeah, you'll be able to use the gems that you earn on the platform to buy products. And you'll also be able to use gems in a whole lot of other ways on the platform as well.
Ooh, super exciting, super exciting. One of the final questions that I've got for you is community. You're talking a lot about like sharing the love, sharing the wealth, the finances as well, but you're also promoting good spirit. How you and you say this through the hashtag challenges. There's also something else that I've seen you do personally. You've had shout outs of digital creators on Twitter before their pieces go up for auction. What other kinds of things do you do to promote your community within User?
But what we have coming soon is a whole new feature. I'll talk about it exclusively right here. It's called Collectives. It's called Collectives. Okay. Yeah. So you'll be able to start a collective on User. And with that collective, you'll be able to essentially create your own micro community on User and help to curate the content on the platform. And that will actually have a lot of benefits to the content that you're curating as it shows up in people's feeds. So it's going to help categorize the content and create a much more personalized experience for everybody. So going back to the previous question, how are we going to help make User that much better for consumers of content? Well, Collectives has a huge part to play in that. And in fact, the people that run these collectives will play a huge role in making that experience pleasurable and personalized for consumers that come onto the app. So it's a whole new way in which we're going to be channeling content to users on the app. And it's going to involve the power of a community to make that happen.
This is awesome. I'm familiar with User and I'm already more excited than I was. So as someone just discovering what User is, you should definitely consider this. For those people though, how are they going to come across User? Like how do they sign up? It's invite only as right now?
Currently, User is invite only. If you really want to and you know somebody on the app, they can invite you personally. Much like other, invitation processes, you can sync your contacts and then we give you a set number of invites every day. We give you 5 right now. And then you can go out and invite anybody. If you don't know anybody that's yet on the app, you can join our Discord where we do daily invite drops. We give a set number of limited invites in a link that you can tap on from your mobile device, and it will launch the app and you can sign up.
That's huge. That's huge. We will make sure to add that Discord link to our show notes. Also, I'm on User, so if anyone out there wants to be invited, I'm happy to share my invites with you. Tom, we've reached the very end. Do you have any final words?
Power to the people.
Power to the people. Decentralize the system. I like it. I like it. Where can our listeners find you or you on your socials or for User?
You can find me pretty much everywhere at Tom Synth.
Synth. Got you. Nice and easy.
TOM Synth.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Tom Cermak. We out. This episode is brought to you by thecharts.com. If you're a producer or beat maker looking to build your beat commerce business in less time, thecharts.com can help. Remember that you can sign up for free and start selling your beats and instrumentals today at thecharts.com. Big shout out to all parties involved. You can find more value at our website at goproduce.ca. Connect with me on Instagram at go.produce. If you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're on Apple or Spotify, make sure to hit download. This will really help us grow our community. I'm Big Lou, and this is Go Produce.